I'd move anything else. I'd take any call. How far off am I?
Well, I think that there's certainly going to be a pivot coming. I think that Michael Porter Jr. is the kind of player that I think they'll be almost certainly looking to move.
Yeah.
They used to need him desperately as a weak side spacer in the context of Aaron Gordon as a non-shooter. But now with
Yeah.
Aaron Gordon really coming together as just a super well-rounded, versatile role player on both ends of the floor, I think they can actually look to target more of a defensive-minded wing at that position instead of a guy like Michael Porter Jr., who's more of a shooter. I would
Yeah.
stick with Jamal because I think there's a lot of value specifically with the continuity with him in that matchup. This is a guy who's played two-man game with Jokic for over a half decade. And he just has
Yeah.
such a flow with him. I think there's a conversation to be had with Jamal as it pertains to his conditioning. And it's routine now that he comes into camp out of shape and he basically
Yeah.
plays his way into shape. And then suddenly, right before the All-Star break, he kind of starts to come together, and then he'll look good in the playoffs, just not as consistently good as he can be. I mean, Colin, as bad as he was tonight, he was absolutely brilliant in game 6. But it's one of
Yeah.
those things where I think internally they're going to need more out of Jamal, but I certainly think a pivot's coming. I think the pivot's going to center around a Michael Porter Jr. trade. That's the kind of piece that they need to upgrade. I think Jamal, I think Christian Brown, I think Aaron Gordon, I think Nikola Jokic. I think that's a championship four. I just think they need someone more along the lines of like a Herb Jones, Jaden McDaniels type at the three than they need a Michael Porter Jr. They need to anchor this group with defense. They need to give themselves more athleticism and pop. You could feel the difference in the athleticism in this, especially in Game 7 tonight, like or today. Like they're in that beginning of the game is so funny on the broadcast. They show all the difference in experience. All those Nuggets
Yeah.
have played in like 20 Game 7s combined, and there's like three on the OKC side. And they start the game, and Denver goes up 21-10, and it literally
Yep.
feels like a classic young guy Game 7. But then right at the end of the first quarter, Alex Caruso checks in. They really up their ball pressure, and man, did the wheels come off. It
Yeah.
completely came off from there, and they just were never able to regain control. And even Jokic, to your point, especially in that late second quarter run that OKC went on right before the half, he just
Yeah.
looked physically overwhelmed by how
Gassed.
physical they're going.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was like a 14-2 run, and they were getting up the floor. And I think, I think, I've said this before. I think the first round should be 5 games. I think that's what it was in MJ's era, and I think the pace is faster. I think the athletes are bigger and stronger. I don't like the NFL going to 18 games eventually. I think we should. I don't. That doesn't do it for me, because I think athletes now they're training year round. You ask more, bodies break down. But I think we're going to end up. We're ending up with really good coaching staffs with OKC, Minnesota, Indiana, and the Knicks. That's what we're ending up with. And I think we're ending up with, I mean, between Halliburton and Jalen Brunson and SGA and I mean Ant, obviously. I feel like the Eastern Conference feels much different than the Western Conference. In the Western Conference, I just love the construct of the rosters. I mean, if you look at Minnesota, it should not be this good. Rudy Gobert's an offensive hole at times. Conley's 6 years past his prime. Ant is a superstar, a developing superstar. Julius Randle was never a good playoff performer and struggled the first month or two with the T Wolves. But I see this roster, I see the athleticism, I see the size. Great GM came from Denver, and I see a staff that just gets everything out of its players, that like coaches them hard. It's like almost like Spoelstra coaches them hard, has no problem barking, but I feel like I'm getting every player's best game. And with Oklahoma City, like Sam Presti, I feel again, I just think there's just so much energy and so many guys that can do high-end rotational players. So in the West, you can touch on this. I think it's really good coaching. Obviously, two of the top 4 or 5 stars in Ant SGA, but I think it's really good coaching, really good GMing, really nice rosters with a variety of options to throw at teams. Big energy, youth, and just there's so many levers for both coaches to pull in the West. Hey, so we all make mistakes, but owning up to them is the right thing to do. So, Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula and it did not go over well with their fans. So, Degree's whole thing is it turns up the sweat and odor protection when you turn up the effort. And good thing it does because Cool Rush fans really turned up the effort to bring the original formula back. One guy even started an online petition, and Degree listened. They admitted they effed up. They're bringing back the original Cool Rush scent. They're bringing it back, and it's exactly how you remember it. Cool, crisp, and fresh. It's back in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. There's a reason it's been the number one men's antiperspirant for the last decade. It's the same reason why people were not happy when it changed. So if you've never tried it, it might be a good time to see what the fuss is about. Head to your local Walmart, Target, and try the OG Degree Cool Rush for yourself.
Yeah, depth is the recurring theme that I see for sure, in the sense that the Pacers have 3, 4, 5 guys that they lean on in substantial roles off the bench. Same with Oklahoma City. Same with Minnesota. You're getting Naz Reid, Dante DiVincenzo, Nikhil Alexander-Walker. These teams just have wave after wave of talent. And even with the Knicks, like the Knicks don't have the depth in terms of like playing an 8 or 9 man rotation. But Mitchell Robinson is like a legit sixth starter for
Yeah,
them. And so is Deuce
yeah.
McBride. I think Deuce McBride's a very good backup guard. And so I think that's part of it. Having like a rock solid 7 that you can count on, I think makes a big deal. I mean, to your point, Colin, literally we got into the start of the second quarter and David Adelman inexplicably leaves Jokic and Murray off the court at the same time. And we got
Yeah.
to see a little bit of Denver's bench there for a minute. It wasn't pretty. And so I
No.
think I think depth is a significant part of it. There is an interesting trend, Colin, towards offense in late playoff success. 2 years ago, Denver is the first team that's not a defending champion that was not a top 10 defense to win the title. Last year, we had 3 top 10 offenses, 2 top 10 defenses. This year, all 4 teams in the Final Four are top 10 offenses, but only Oklahoma City and Minnesota are top 10 defenses, which I find really fascinating. The offensive side of the floor is becoming more important as the coaching staffs and the defensive schematics have made it so that groups like that Denver group can actually defend pretty well when they're engaged and they're playing hard. And so what's really becoming important is, do you have the scoring talent to actually put the ball in the basket in these tight competitive environments?
You know what's interesting? There's a real change in the league, and I think it's one Adam Silver, the commissioner, wanted. I don't think it's a coincidence that Halliburton and Brunson are high IQ, EQ floor generals. 5 years ago it was let's get 3 really good players together, and I think Adam Silver looked at that and just thought that's not what we want here. Like that's just eliminating half to 60 to 70% of the teams, and you're getting the basketball that Adam Silver wanted: physical playoff basketball, no dynasties, with multiple aprons. You can't have a stacked roster. Even Boston, they cheated the code a little bit for a year, and then they looked really old this year. Like once we move off probably Porzingis or a Horford or a Drew Holiday, Boston's going to face what everybody else does, right? With new ownership. So I think it's what the league wanted, and I got to tell you what I really like about it. I love nothing against wings, MJ and Kobe, but I like point guard driven basketball. I love smart point guard play. I always love Chris Paul, where everybody gets touches. Um, I went golfing this morning very early in Burbs in Chicago, and we started talking about Jalen Brunson, and we were all sports fans, and we were all like, "Yeah, I watched them at Villanova. I didn't see that. I watched them at Dallas. I didn't see that." But I think you know how you and I had talked about certain players when the league went 3 heavy, guys like Dwight Howard or Tristan Thompson. It's like, man, you can't have them on the floor. It's almost like Adam Silver has moved basketball into Brunson and Halliburton, which is it's not you're not going to have you're going to have these rosters that aren't all star studded. They're rotational players, they're role players. So intelligence, everybody getting touches, pacing becomes huge. Like I look at Brunson now and I'm like, I feel like the league's kind of built for him and Halliburton. It's 28 points isn't necessary. It's when you don't have a top heavy roster, Jason, and you actually have 7 guys that can play 8 guys, and you get them all touches. I don't know. I watch the league and I don't feel like the Knicks and the Pacers are outliers. I'm like, no, like they're my favorite two teams right now in the league to watch.
I think you're absolutely onto something here, Colin. I think what we're seeing is offensive minded stars that are able to create advantages, and then these deep rosters of talent living off of that advantage. Essentially, like as the game has modernized, there's a lot of really similar jobs on offense. Like a backdoor cut is a backdoor cut, regardless of what type of athlete you are. If you're attacking a closeout, it's the same for the Pacers as it is for the Knicks, as it is for the Nuggets. If you're making reads in a 4-on-3, slipping out of a ball screen because they put two on Brunson or they put two on Halliburton, it's the same reads in Golden State as it is in Indiana, as it is in New York. And so what happens is you can, as a GM, accumulate these types of talent, these two-way players that can attack closeouts, make reads, play defense,
Yep.
all that kind of stuff. And all it becomes is, do